Hi everyone. So in our video today, I'm talking to Emma again, and we are going to be talking about control because this is quite a big issue that comes up a lot with eating disorders, and it's certainly something that both of us have a lot of experience with. So we're just going to have a chat and kind of see what comes up and explore like what is this all about? Like why are we desperately searching for control? Why does it feel so important? And actually maybe what's going on kind of underneath the surface. So I mean, Emma, how did that show up for you in your eating disorder?
Mm. So that sense, the word control, I don't think I ever would have necessarily associated when I was in the depths of it. I don't think I thought I was controlling anything. I thought I was doing what I had to do, what was necessary in
Mm,
that time. Um, and so it didn't, I, it felt kind of normal. And I think in that sense, like con control in an eating disorder sense is what keeps it so regiment. So kind of not predictive. Um when you know it's going to happen,
mm,
it's I can't think of the word, but because you're just doing the motions for some part of it, maybe before you even realize the position you're in, what you're doing to yourself, and its level of meaning in your life. I don't think it does. It didn't, that word didn't really ring a bell. But now, when I think about the position I'm in now, and I can look back on what it was like before, that's all it is.
mm,
And I don't mean that in a diminishing way, but that really is, because the smallest thing that you couldn't do because a situation meant you your rules and kind of controlled conditions and things like that actually didn't fit. Oh, it you, um just volcanoes erupted, the world was crumbling. How could you cope? How could
mm,
I? And that's when you, and again, so the control comes in and going, well, I won't go there, or I won't see them, I won't do that, I'll miss this. And when you get so used to that, that just becomes so normal.
mm.
So I think that now looking back, I can definitely feel that.
Yeah. Mm,
um but maybe just wasn't aware necessarily at the time that control was what I was pursuing, or what
mm.
I had to live by.
Yeah.
Control.
And
And
that's
what
an
about
interesting
you?
word, like saying you had to. It's that
Yeah.
sense of like obligation almost.
Mm.
But what I think is really interesting about that example, about if we kind of in a situation where our rules can't be followed and then we feel out of control, actually, I think that in itself is really interesting that we feel like we're out of control or we don't have control because
Yeah.
I think it's a really interesting conversation to explore like what's the difference between control and choice,
Yes.
because actually like we have control, we have choice over what we do, how we
Mm.
behave, what we say, all of that. And so actually when we when we say kind of, oh, the eating disorders give me control because I don't know, I feel maybe out of control, actually like in those situations where it maybe doesn't meet our expectations and we can't follow all of our rules and feel out of control, actually is that just coming from the eating disorder?
Mm-hmm.
Like the eating disorder can't have control in those moments because actually like we can actually do what we want in those moments.
Mm-hmm.
whether that meets our kind of expectations or not, we still have a say. Like no
Because we're
one's
choosing
exactly,
actually to
exactly.
listen to the eating disorder,
Mm.
but we don't believe that's a choice. We feel it's an obligation.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether I think I must have talked to you about this before, but I had like a light bulb moment, and it was this feeling that I was living under a dictatorship,
Mm.
and all of a sudden I could actually kind of almost slightly separate myself from the eating disorder and me, and realize that there were it was this is a strange moment really, but it was like I've been living under a dictatorship. I hadn't really realized the kind of society I was living in, and what had been indoctrinated into me to believe so much that you just kind of followed along. You didn't question, you did as you were told, and yeah, you didn't feel like there was a choice because you didn't realize there's another way. So it's
Mm.
almost like, okay, so that's happening in North Korea, and then you've got kind of another the flip side of it, and excuse this kind of analogy, but there are people who are not listening. They're deciding to go against this. They're deciding that there is another way of doing something. Now, that doesn't mean to leave that place and go and flee to South Korea, sorry, is particularly easy,
Mm.
maybe, but actually noticing that it's something else you're choosing to listen to, and you could choose otherwise.
Mm.
So I think even recognizing an element of choice
Mm.
is definitely, and I mean, talk about like, how could you not feel controlled in that situation? I mean, I do understand how, because I did. But that's exactly what dictatorships are. It's all about control.
Yeah, and I think that's a really helpful distinction to make between having control and being controlled,
Yeah, completely.
because actually that's ultimately what it is, right? It kind of convinces us that we've got all this control we've got, and this is, I don't know, this is everything that we should be kind of striving for, to have as much control as possible. Whereas
Yeah.
actually, in reality, we are totally being controlled by the chatter in our head.
Mm.
And it's that disguise that I think can be really challenging, because it's like, for both of us, like I felt the same when I had my eating disorder, that I didn't really think about control or see it as a necessarily big factor, but actually that's that was all it was. It kind of permeated every corner of it.
Mm.
That was such a big part of it. But I wonder, like, I think when I was kind of reflecting on this the other day, like fear is just such a big part of it,
That
because I
diminishes the element of choice, doesn't it?
hmm,
I think when we've believed to not feel something, we have to do this, then there is no choice.
hmm,
But if that thing we feared so much wasn't true, or we could cope with however it did make us
hmm,
feel, then we have choice, because this could potentially be tolerable. It
hmm.
could potentially be okay.
Yeah, exactly. And I think certainly for me, like, so, like, well, I mean, pretty much all my decisions, my thought processes were fear driven
Yeah.
within my eating disorder.
Mm.
And I think whether we have an eating disorder or not, and we're kind of desperately trying to get some kind of control, like, that's fear driven too. And I think that's a really important thing to realize, because actually it hasn't actually got anything to do with safety and security. Whereas I think so often it can appear that way, or the chatter in our head
Mm.
makes us believe that that's the case. Like, oh, if I just have a bit more control, then I'll be safe, I'll be secure, I'll be able to kind of fend off any dangers almost. And I just don't see the truth in that, because whenever we're coming from a place of fear, that's never going to lead to that place of kind of safety and security that we're also kind of desperate to get to. Actually, it's from a place of, this is just from my experience, a place of allowing and trusting ourselves, I think. that allows us to access that part of us that is safe and secure and always will be. It's like we look outside of ourselves to try and get to this place, this place of safety and security, by doing all these things, trying to control all of these things in our external environment. Whereas actually, like, it's an inside job. That the more we chase those things externally, the further we're actually getting away from where it actually is.
Yeah, because we're making it as though we're not perfect just the way we are. We have to add to ourselves. We're not enough. That we don't have everything we need already. That there is this grappling, isn't there? Oh, well, if I do this out there, then I'll get that. I'll be there. I'll be that person. I will have XYZ qualities. And I mean, I use the word grappling because, my gosh, if it's anything but smooth having an eating disorder. If it was all unicorns, rainbows, and fairies, then great, yeah, roll with it. But it isn't. It pulls you so much further away from yourself that you believe that is yourself. That's why you're grappling for it. We're so separated from that ability to trust who we are, because we don't really feel like we know who we are at all anyway, even if there is a who we are. There always is, like you said, there always is. But the more we look elsewhere out, the further away we get from what's so close to us. And it's, I suppose I can imagine, and I think sometimes the impetus we might put on, I can't let go of control. I don't know what's there. I don't know what's left. It's too difficult to do other things. It's too scary, the fear. What is the truth in that? In all these it is. I can't.
The what ifs.
Exactly.
It's all fear driven again, isn't it?
Yeah, the other way round.
Yeah.
You're not asking yourself to do anything yet if you don't want to, are you? You're just waiting. But like you say, what if you just toyed with the idea? If I wasn't to do this, what might I do?
And I think also, like, it doesn't have to be black and white. It's not being in control or trying desperately to control everything and just not controlling anything at all.
No, absolutely not.
But I think it's like it's looking at what's going on behind the scenes. So what's actually driving this? Like,
where does the control come from?
Yeah. And
is it you?
Like, why is it that I'm actually so desperate to try and get it? Is it because I'm coming from a place of fear, or actually is it something else? And I think we so rarely look at what's driving our thoughts and behaviors. So we just kind of go along with it, and it's like our thoughts will state themselves as facts, so we just go with them, because of course we all want to be in control, or have as much control as we possibly can. Like, there's no because, it's just states it like that. And so yeah, we go with it, of course we do, because it sounds true, it sounds important, it sounds kind of almost vital, vital to our survival almost.
Survival is exactly what I was thinking too. Yeah.
Whereas actually it's like, okay, well, what if we actually start to explore what's the why behind it? And I'm sure the eating disorder will love to take part in that exercise and come up with a whole load of things about, because it will mean that like everything we were just saying about being kind of safe and secure, and if you're out of control then this means X, Y, and Z, and all of that.
And maybe an allowance to question that and say, okay, well, what is safety? What is that for me? And what is that for my eating disorder, maybe? And what are the different qualities of those? And we often talk about kind of what feels hot or cold or warm and icy. Which one, what's the difference in the feeling of those places of safety for one and safety for the other? And what is the cost to one if you follow the other? If I choose this safety for the dictatorship in my mind, for this kind of evil Knievel that I've created, then what, because I know in myself that I am not that, then what effect does that have on me? How present am I? Like, where am I in that? What's the balance? And if I was to give this the upper hand, if, again, you're not asking yourself to actually do anything yet if you don't want to, choice, right? How does that feel? What's the difference in qualities there? Who has, and I mean, I've automatically just done this, I've shifted the upper hand. And just kind of, observing, if you can give yourself that time to, and that, maybe not if you can give yourself that time, but give yourself that time to see what that balance is like. To give yourself back that control that maybe you've plummeted everything into something else, someone else, whatever it is.
And I think that in itself is quite interesting, because it's like, even then we're still wanting to be in control or have control. And it's like, actually, is that what we want to strive for at all? Like, even if we're coming from a place of kind of alignment, or we're not giving the eating disorder the kind of center stage. Actually, I kind of want to challenge that a little bit, because like, what is control? Like, what are we actually trying to achieve? It's just this, again, it goes back to the why. It's like, okay, well, if I try and, like, I don't, it's so funny, because like the idea of control just doesn't come into my head at all in like my day-to-day life. And maybe that's because again, it goes back to kind of the choice versus control. Like, I can choose moment to moment what I do with myself, and like what I want to believe, what I want to do, who I want to talk to, all that kind of stuff. But the idea of control, it's like my muscles tighten, and it's just like, it feels like this kind of restrictive cage almost. This like tightening of my hands, my fists. It's like, that feels like control. Choice feels like that.
Yeah, maybe it isn't take back control. Maybe it is kind of that scary phrase of lose control and take back choice. Give yourself choice. Because yes,
like,
even any elements of control is you're limiting possibility that could
yeah, yeah,
happen,
exactly,
aren't you?
exactly. It's the
Mm,
rigidity, it's the like regimentedness
mhm.
of it all. And
And
I think when we so often feel that the tighter we grip something, the safer it is,
yeah,
or the safer that we are. But actually, like, we don't have to go through life like gripping onto this illusion of a life raft.
no,
Actually, like, we can already touch the bottom. We can
yeah,
already, like, if we're in water, like gripping onto this lifeboat, like, actually
mhm,
we're in the shallow end.
yeah,
Like, we can walk. So actually, like, we can loosen our grip, and actually it's like relaxing into choice
yeah,
and empowerment,
yeah.
which
And
we
choice
have.
in oh gosh, it's there for us. Like you were saying, it's there already in that
Mm,
safety that we have just as being.
mm,
And I think there is that element of with when you kind of open up to choice, then nothing is wrong or right even, or nothing
mm,
is was the right choice or the wrong choice because there's no control in that
mm,
choice.
yeah.
In every moment you can make a different decision, you can
Mm,
choose again differently, and so along with choice becomes the trust,
yeah.
or along with trust becomes choice,
Mm,
because there is that trust and knowing and belief in yourself that you don't need to control these things in order to be okay with what happens.
mm,
You don't need to inflict anything on anything. In fact,
mm,
like you say, feel your feet touching the bottom already. You're safe. You're protected anyway.
mm,
And what opens up there? What
yeah.
choices are then on offer?
Yeah. Yeah. And
And
I
to
think
me,
it's
that's like I can
yeah,
breathe
totally,
freely. Like the
totally.
sky is now really blue. The trees have just opened up. And I do, I can feel the river kind of running between my legs and around my legs, and it's cool, but it's calm.
Yeah. Because then we're moving out of that space of fear. Then
Mm.
it moves from fear to trust, and I think that can be really transformational,
Yeah,
because it's just a totally different energy,
yeah. Oh,
and
yeah.
our behaviors follow suit.
Hmm.
It's like the idea of, I don't know, thinking back to some of the things that I would try and control, I guess mainly like food.
Hmm.
When I think about my relationship with food now, it's, I would never use the word control. I'd just say that I choose. And I
Hmm.
think the difference is that I'm not being controlled,
Yeah, yeah,
which then makes me feel like I'm having control over. It's like we're being controlled from up here, which comes through to us, and then we feel like we're then imparting the control over something else. It's like this
yeah.
kind of
Absolutely.
three-stage process.
Yeah.
But I just don't. It's just so interesting, like looking at it now, I just don't relate to that word,
No.
and it just, I feel kind of so far removed, and it kind of feels a bit like, I don't know, it's almost like the word feels quite aggressive almost.
I think it is aggressive. And what came to mind just then when you were saying like it gets passed through, it's like the worst game of Chinese whispers. You know,
Yeah.
don't be don't kind of be the one that passes on exactly what's coming from above and out. Be the one, the rebel. Be the one that's going to mess the game up slightly and just say something completely different in
Mm,
between, and then you have no idea what's going to come out after that.
mm,
Um, play,
yeah.
play with that.
Mm,
And it's that choice to separate yourself from what is harming you,
mm,
what has served you, because we do accept that, don't we? But doesn't serve you now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And following that, trusting in that.
Yeah. And it's so doable. It's like when you're
Yes.
talking about the dictatorship kind of analogy, it's like when we think of that, like, well, when I think of that, it's like high fences, barbed wires, kind of
Yeah,
watchtower kind of situation. But
absolutely.
actually, in reality, like with the eating disorder, yeah, there might be guards at the gate, but they can scream and shout at you, but they can't touch you.
Yeah.
And actually,
Yeah.
you're totally able to walk straight past them out that gate,
Yeah.
and they can't do anything. They will shout and scream and call you all sorts of names and tell
Yeah.
you all sorts of consequences that won't happen.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, we have that freedom. No one can take that away from us. It's
No.
we're free to leave,
Yeah.
free to leave the compound.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But it just
And
isn't seen that way.
no, no, because we I mean, if we can recognize that we created it, we created them. They're not carved in stone or anything. No one else really know. It's our own little world in which we've created up there.
Yeah.
And I really like this idea of kind of putting your hand in your pocket, pulling out an eraser, and just rubbing them out.
Yeah, I love that.
Just rub them out, or
Yeah.
put your hand in the on the puppet stage and just pick the puppets out. Just put them somewhere else. They're that movable.
Mm.
Um, and gosh, does it seem really simple? Like, does it seem so?
Yeah.
But I think if we're constantly still believing in our fears,
Mm.
then we'll always put things in place to keep them very structured and very very there. We can't. I think it's very difficult. I don't want to say we can't because I don't know, but expecting ourselves to be able to overcome those fears whilst those guards are still in place, but also trying to remove those guards while still believing that the fear is real.
Yeah.
Because they kind of
They all
live hand
tangled
in,
up.
don't they?
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
They need
Totally.
the other. So it's being open to kind of dissecting them in a way, or just letting them both just go.
Mm. And I think, again, with all of this, I think I probably say this in every single video that we do. It's it's noticing, it's seeing, starting to see all of this for what it is, and
Yeah.
actually like this idea of control as something that seems so solid and essential and vital, vital to us as human beings. I think when we can start to just just get curious about, actually, is that really true?
Mm-hmm.
Like what's actually driving this? What even is control?
Yeah.
And I think from that point, if we go into those questions with a bit of an open mind, then actually we can start to see something really quite different.
Yeah.
um and I totally get that, like when you're in it, that can be really hard,
Yeah.
because like we've just said, like it looks so true, it looks so important, but actually, like, it can be different. It really
Yeah.
can be different. And actually, like, yeah, what if instead of kind of gripping so tightly onto this idea of control, we can just loosen our grip and start to even explore that, like the idea of choice versus control,
Yeah.
and like just see what comes up, because I think they just come from completely different places. I think for me, that was such a big thing,
Yeah.
just starting to come from a different part of me.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah.
um
Less here and more
yeah,
kind of like a bit lower down, a bit more grounded.
yeah, exactly, yeah. So I hope everyone watching has found this helpful. Please leave comments, etc. And I'm being absorbed by sunlight. There we go. This happens every time. And yeah, we will see you in the next video.